morning, folkers. Snap Turtle, and the place to be. And the place to be is in a state of logic, in a state of common sense, in a state of inquisitiveness. So there's a lot going on with this shooting, with these shootings happening. And, you know, one of those things is your boy Donald Trump is calling for several things, okay? He's calling for several things. Number one, he is continuing to push these airpole laws, or the red flag laws, the extreme risk protection orders, okay? He cited the Parkland shooting and the shooter, talking about how that would have been a good example of how a red flag law could have worked. But I have to tell you this. The guy had the police called on him, what, over 33 times or something like that? And the FBI looked into this kid. And yet, they still allowed this kid to roam around freely, even with all the threats he was making, even with all the things that he posted on social media that were very extreme. And yet, nothing was done. Nothing was done. So you're telling me that a red flag law would have done what? What would it have done? How long can you keep somebody locked up based on an extreme risk protection order? Can you keep them locked up? If somebody said this kid is crazy, if the police arrested this guy or got called on him 33 times and the police did nothing and the FBI did nothing, and now you add an element of psychological evaluation, right? With essentially no due process, even if it's a court order where a judge says, oh, you might be crazy. Let's lock you up. You've been burning crosses and talking about N-word this, N-word that. Oh, I want to kill some N-words and whatever the case may be. How long can you keep somebody like that? Eventually, you're going to have to charge them with something, or you got to let them go. You know, based on what I understood about the Parkland shooter, he probably could have been arrested for terroristic threats. But that didn't happen. You understand? You don't need a psychological evaluation. You don't need a court order or whatever the case may be to know if somebody is threatening somebody overtly. And this is my point. Even with a red flag law, even if you have somebody locked up for observation for a few days, and even if you take their guns, right, based on their perceived threat, what's to stop that person from going and getting a gun from somewhere else, either illegally or from a friend? And from what I understand, the Parkland shooter got his got the firearm he used from one of his KKK or Nazi buddies. So he didn't even use his own weapon to commit these acts. If it happened the way they said it did, you know, I like to question these events, these mass shootings, right? I like to, I like to look a little deeper into it and not just believe everything the media is telling me. But if what they say is true, he didn't even use his own weapon to commit these acts. So how would a red flag law have stopped him from doing what he ultimately wanted to do? No, it wouldn't matter if he had a gun or not of his own. He got one. And this is my problem when I hear people say, oh, we can do a mandatory buyback. Oh, we can do a confiscation. Oh, we can get rid of the Second Amendment altogether. There are those out there, those idiots out there that actually believe that we shouldn't have Second Amendment protections. But the problem with that is, this is America, right? This is the United States, so they call it. And there are hundreds of millions of guns in this country. Legal guns, right? But there are also millions of illegal guns floating around on the streets. So even if you got the citizens to give up their weapons, right? All the citizens turn in their weapons like good little sheep. Or, you know, the shit gets confiscated or they sell it back, they do a buyback. We give away our Second Amendment protections like little sheep and, you know, because we want Big Daddy government to take care of us for the rest of our lives. Even if that happened, criminals are still going to gain access to firearms here in America, no matter what. Because they have a pipeline in this country of illegal weapons. And, you know, nothing, extreme risk protection orders, abolishment of the Second Amendment, buybacks and confiscations aren't going to stop criminals from gaining access to weapons. And if law-abiding citizens really want to gain access to weapons, well, they will become outlaws and gain access to them. They will get them. So, an extreme risk protection order law is really, it doesn't really stop anything. So, just like the guy, the shooter in Gilroy, California, he went to another state to get a weapon quickly, so that he can go to, you know, for some reason the Garlic Festival. For some reason the Garlic Festival was his target. You know, that still boggles my mind. But he was still able to go there and do what he had to do, and bypass the 10-day waiting period. Okay, so these laws that they're creating to stop law-abiding citizens from being able to gain access to the tools to defend themselves are useless. Useless when ultimately somebody wants to commit an act like a mass murder or a mass shooting. And, you know, I'm going to point out the hypocrisy of the left in regards to this. You know, and need I point out that the guy in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, was a leftist by all accounts. If you look at his Twitter accounts and his Instagram accounts and all that, never mind that a guy of the same name died in 2014 who had a sister of the same name. Never mind that. Let's you know what is that about? I don't know. But anyway, he was a leftist, and he was an anti-Trump guy. He was a pro-Elizabeth Warren guy. He's talking about he was a devil worshiper and all kind of shit, right? Talking about worshiping the devil. Now, let's say an airport law was in place in Ohio for this guy. I mean, just how would a red flag law have stopped him from doing what he wanted to do? What would you go on? What would you use to justify taking his weapons, locking him up for observation? At what point, what would trigger an algorithm to have a motherfucker have these people come get you? to see what your head about. Any number of things that anybody can say. It could be anything that he could have said, right? Or because he's a leftist and they overlook leftists in regards to the threat they can pose, maybe nothing at all. Maybe these Aeropol laws or these red flag laws are designed to target right-wingers. And, you know, the left, you know, they can do no wrong, right? When they commit acts like Antifa, doing all these low-level violent acts, throwing milkshakes at people, throwing Molotov cocktails inefficiently, and getting killed. That isn't highlighted in a negative way by the press. As a matter of fact, people like Sean King praised the guy in Washington who attacked the ICE facility. The left, I mean, he called for this type of shit to continue. And not to mention, Raza Aslan sitting up here talking about all Trump supporters need to be eradicated. But this is the same type of dude that's calling for gun control. You see where this is going? It's not about gun control, it's about people control. And it's about controlling a certain type of people. Like, say, right-wing white dudes. You know what I'm saying? Black people. You know, law-abiding black people. They love for gangbangers to have guns that they can get illegally so they can kill each other. That's their black gang members. You know what I'm saying? The drug dealers and all them. Oh, they can have all the guns they want as long as they're killing each other. No, they're not an issue. It's black people like me and people of color like me who have their own mind. You know, that don't fall for the left-wing okey doke. You know what I'm saying? So this guy calls for all Trump supporters to be eradicated. Now, I'm no Trump supporter, okay? By any means. I am not left-wing, right-wing. I don't believe in... I don't subscribe to the kabuki theater that is the United States government. You know, I'm a voluntarist. I don't believe in big daddy government controlling everything. But look at the irony in him calling for Trump supporters to be eradicated. Yet people like him, yet the left want all this gun control to crack. So when you talk about eradicating left or right-wing Trump supporters, what you going to eradicate them with? Rocks? Molotov cocktails that you can't even throw properly? Slingshots? Boomerangs maybe? Or maybe you'll just yap your mouth and bore them to death. How are you going to eradicate a group of people that, for the most part, know how to use a firearm very efficiently? How are you going to eradicate that group of people when you're calling for the government to come and take everybody's weapons away? You see the hypocrisy? And back on Trump. Trump is steadily marching toward dictatorship. And our government is marching toward authoritarianism. Understand that. Because what did Trump talk about in his speech after the shootings? He talked about the red flag laws and how we have to implement that. He talked about rolling background checks into the immigration bill that he wants to pass. And then he's talking about violent video games being a problem and causing people to want to go out and shoot a bunch of people. Even though it's proven through many studies and through many scientific methods that video games actually help stem violence because it's an outlet for people who might otherwise commit violence. You know what I mean? They're getting it in on a video game, right? It's a release. It's a release. So the video game isn't to blame. But look what's happening. So what's going to come? So he's going to call for strict background checks, federal background checks. He's going to expand the airport laws, red flag laws. And let's not forget the TAPS Act. The TAPS Act is sitting there waiting in the wings. And once that gets passed by the House and then the Senate and Trump sign it, you can kiss all your freedoms goodbye. So you got airport red flag laws, background checks, federal background checks, and maybe even the banning of video games. And the TAPS Act, the threat assessment, was it? Threat assessment, prevention, and safety Act, which is just like red flag laws on steroids. Okay, that's essentially what it is. Red flag laws on steroids. The federal red flag law on steroids. Dan Crenshaw endorses it. It's a split down the middle, like everybody in Congress loves it. So whenever a bill like that comes about, that's about gaining more control over the people. It's gleefully bipartisan, isn't it? Anyway. So I just want y'all to think about all that. Trump is marching steadily toward dictatorship, and he's fooling everybody. He's fooling these right-wing people who think that Trump is their savior. He's not. He is the Trojan horse that will convince the most avid Second Amendment proponent to turn against their own freedoms. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Hit that like button, share this video, subscribe. And yeah, I'll holler at y'all later.